Okay, welcome to part 5. Let's start by talking about legendary science. So, as you may know, when you get uncommon science, that doubles its effectiveness, triple at rare, 4 times at epic, and 6 times at legendary. Now, this is true for all the sciences, but the one it benefits the most is agricultural science because it also increases the spoil time. Now, a lot of people think that this makes it worth it for agricultural science, but even when you go into the maths, this doesn't work out in its favor. Okay, so let's look at the maths. When we look at productivity, in both cases, because we are going to use the biochamber, we have 50% productivity just inherent with the building. So we're going to assume that we're creating 150 items in each case. And then with productivity bonus, this essentially means that with full prod modules, we also get 66% extra. And if we multiply this, we'll get 250. Whereas in the other case, we get 150 of each quality. And then these are the multipliers for how much they give you at each quality. And then we multiply again with what's the probability of getting that quality level. And then we have a last term that has to do with the freshness. And the mean variable here is the minutes. So if I take, let's say, 30 minutes to deliver the science to the labs and it's consumed at the lab, then we would have 60 minutes. That's the full freshness duration. Minus 30, that gives us 30. Divided by 60 is 1/2. And then I have the same thing here for normal quality. It's the same equation. For uncommon, you need to add 80 minutes, 36 minutes at rare, whatever, epic, and then even more at legendary. And the thing we need to look at is at what point is doing quality better? Because of this mechanic that, you know, the more it spoils, the less science you actually get out of it. Clearly, you're going to deliver all your science at the same time. So I'm going to assume that regardless of quality, it's going to take the same amount of time for it to be delivered. So if we look at it that way, then we can check, okay, maybe at 1 minute, maybe if we somehow delivered everything and was used at the labs within 1 minute, maybe productivity is better, but we need to look at something more realistic, let's say 10 minutes or 20 or 30 minutes. Because at 30 minutes, okay, this is essentially halved, but maybe the higher qualities, they're not bothered that much, right? So we can do some maths on that, and these are the same equations. And let's start with just 5 minutes. So that assumes that it's only been 5 minutes since production till consumption at the lab. And oops, and I can copy this. And it turns out that with productivity, we essentially get 229, science versus 177. So clearly, productivity is far better so far. And let's do 30 minutes. Again, productivity is ahead, 125 versus 105. Now, of course, you can make set this equal to this and then solve for minutes. And, roughly you'll get 45 minutes. So as you see, they're about equal. There's 62 signs at this point. Now, 45 minutes is a lot. When we're talking about end game, even in the early game, like 45 minutes is a lot. Is a lot. If your spaceships take that long to get the science, go back to novice and then use it there, you're probably doing something else wrong. And this is just taking into account how efficient one biochamber is versus another biochamber. That's it. They're both consuming the same amount of materials. That's it. So when you add to that, that here you can use, you know, beacons with speed modules and all that, it's just so much better. And you don't have to deal with the logistics of 5 different items, which you would have in when you're doing quality. Now, I'm pretty sure this argument, if it can hold for agricultural science, it will also hold for any other science. So I don't know how convincing this was to people, but to me, it's super convincing. Even with agricultural science, it's better to like get your logistics really tight, especially the later in the game you go, and make sure that your spaces aren't being wasted, you know, and the science packs still make it. So yeah, if you think you're gonna be slower than 45 minutes and you're okay with not having beacons with speed modules, I guess this is better, but I won't go for it. Now, in terms of the maths, there's nothing better than no other science pack benefits more than the agricultural science pack. However, there's one more that is kind of weird, and that's the Prometheum science pack. Now, it's weird because mainly because of Biorex and Prometheum asteroid science. I also think that it's better to do it at normal quality. Um, but what you'll notice if you go into the, you know, as you go into the Prometheum, is that you're getting so much Prometheum that it may be worth recycling it and getting anything that's above uncommon quality. Now, I have run a little experiment here to see like how fast you can do that. Somewhere around here, let me find it. Yeah, it's over here. Okay, so it turns out if you have a legendary quality recycler, you can get up to 3 inserters that are legendary inserting Prometheum Master chunks non-stop. And about 10% of the ones that you insert will end up being uncommon or higher, which you can then use. Now, the reason this may be worth it, but I doubt it, is just because of how many Prometheum Asteroid chunks you get. I don't think it's worth it. There's no way to, I think, conclusively decide besides testing it out, but I don't think it's worth it. Um, I just don't. You would probably need to design your spaceship around that, and then you would also need to get uncommon biter eggs and uncommon uh, quantum processors. It's just not worth it. So, but who knows? I mean, it's plausible that the meta might change around that. I just don't see it. I don't have maths to support this. It's just practically from what I've seen from doing Prometheum myself and other people doing Prometheum, it doesn't seem like it's the way to go. So yeah, that's my answer. If someone can convince me otherwise, feel free to do so. I personally think I don't see how the maths over here can lie. I think the developers should probably buff Science Pack somehow with quality. It's just really bad now. Like even in this best case scenario, even at 45 minutes, it's not worth it because you can't use beacons with speed modules, and you have more logistics to take care of. When it comes to the other science packs, it's just terrible. It's like setting this to 0, which actually I'm curious. Let me just do that and see what we get. Um, yeah, so in this case, it's about what is 25% better, a bit more, 30% better. There seems to be no reason to go for the science packs at higher quality. I think honestly, I think they need to double this, and then there is a bit of a trade-off. Then you can consider maybe I can get higher quality. On average is better, but I can't use beacons. I need to deal with the logistics, right? Because yeah, if this had twice as much, if this was like 380, then you could consider doing it. Now, I guess each science pack has its own building, so, but I kind of doubt that this will turn around and favor some of the other sciences. Anyway, that's it for the sciences. I want to talk about a couple things I have realized. In my part 4 video, I recommended that you do not use requester or buffer chest here and then bring in your own resources. I thought about it again, and to be honest, it's not that bad. Um, if you did bring in your own resources, then you definitely don't want to bring in too many. Like probably one stack size, like 200 advanced circuits uncommon, 100 processing units, or whatever, 5, 5, 1, 4, like some multiple of the ratios. I think it's okay to bring them in if you have them already. Um, the only thing you would need to do to address that in most cases is just you might need to temporarily add more recyclers or upgrade your recycler quality. Because if not, then these buildings are, building items more frequently than they've been tested for. So then this can clog up and eventually will clog up all the way to here. And then, you know, you can run into issues. So it's not the worst case if you add here some, as long as they're not too many. Like if you do something like this, it's probably fine. Um, well, of the right quality. Just make sure that it's not a lot. It only takes up a few of the slots. And yeah, just add some recyclers. The second thing is you can definitely play around with how you take the outputs here, right? Feel free to do so. And especially because I had someone tell me about, yeah, this blueprint with the quantum processors, especially when you want both the end product, like here we want both the legendary quantum processors and we want legendary carbide, carbon fiber, lithium plate. And I mean, technically, you can use the other two as well. When you want both, you can play around with these outputs. You don't even need. You can remove all of this and somehow, like I can say, you could remove. Let me see. You could remove all of this. All of this. Yeah, this is the legendary output. You can just take it and then figure out on your own how you wanna handle it. Um, with counter processors, it's definitely the case because this does not affect the throughput at all, right? Because you only have productivity in the crafting step. This cannot craft legendary quality quantum processors. So either way, the output really is the legendary ingredients, which then you can turn to legendary quantum processors. So you can definitely do that, and yeah, you can do it in any blueprint. You may need to figure out a bit more how it works than I've described. Might not be as simple as plug and play, but yeah, feel free to do that. A lot of the times, maybe with the output, I have done something which I think would be good for most people, but some people may prefer to handle it in a different way. Another example is the new blueprint, this one, where I never recycle the legendary electromagnetic plants, and I never use the legendary holmium plate, the legendary ingredients to craft electromagnetic plants, right? So you can't change that around. Now, of course, in this one, you would actually need to add this combinator, the legendary version back, and you will need to do a bunch of modifications, but you're free to do that, right? My choices on how to handle the outputs at the end had to do with what I think most people would be, what most people would prefer, including myself, I guess. The next thing to consider that was kind of like an idea I had, and it sounded like it made sense. But so let's take, for example, that I want to make fusion reactors. These are made in a cryogenic plant, and they take quantum processors. So I thought, okay, quantum processors, if you remember the spreadsheet, the way we're making quantum processors has an efficiency of 7%. Okay, that's all legendary. But if you think about it, the way we're actually crafting them is if I go back to the blueprint here. Like I said, we're getting the legendary ingredients and then we're crafting them. But to get the legendary ingredients, we need to recycle them first, including the epic ingredients. So if I recycle epic ingredients, 75% of them are lost and some of them will turn to legendary. But 75% of them are lost, right? But here's the thing. If I want to make a fusion reactor, then I do it in a cryogenic plant. And my thought is, well, cryogenic plant can get up to like 50% quality. If I use the epic quality ingredients, then I have 50% chance to get legendary anyway, right? So even if I don't want epic quality, even if I don't want epic quality fusion reactors, now I'm losing only 50% of the ingredients to make one rather than 75%, right? So that kind of made sense. And, it wasn't fully fleshed out. The maths weren't fully fleshed out, but it kind of made sense that, and not only that, the ones that end up being epic, I can recycle them and try again, as we've been doing. So I looked through it, and this is where I added some extra code if you saw part 4.5. And I'll go through it with some examples. Let's actually go through this example actually. So let's say we have quantum processors. So we make them in an electromagnetic plant. We can use productivity. There's no extra first step. And then let's say we want to keep the quantum processors, but not the ingredient. So here is a few new stuff. So first of all, there's also this, just because of for biolabs for captive bioresponders, that's false. So so in this case, we want to keep the item, right? And then with the item, we're going to have this extra step. We're going to create something else. So, and then what do we create? We are creating the fusion reactor. We're not going to create it and then recycle it back to one of these three. So we want to keep the item at the end, not the ingredient. There's no productivity bonus, and we can do 8 module slots. Okay, and if I run this, then I get the same thing. I get 7.07%, right? Because if I'm only keeping the legendary quantum processors, there's no difference. But what if I'm also keeping the epic ones? And I run it again, and it's 10.5%, 10.6, like a 50% increase in the efficiency. So that's what this part of the code does. And this specifically changes stuff in case you have a biolab or captive bioresponder, because these recycle onto themselves. So they need some changes down in the code down below. Whereas everything else recycles back onto its ingredients. And I only tested this with end items, so things in the production tab, in the logistic tab, in the space tab, in the combat tab. I didn't test it. What if I get, what if I get, I don't even know. Is there even such a case? I don't know. What if I get legend epic quality holmium plate and then I do some recycling of superconductors? Is that somehow more efficient? Kind of somehow combine this with my other, with my older blueprint. Although to be honest, these two can't be combined. You can just get the implants with the one and the rest with this. But I think that's another thing I never mentioned. But one of the things I wanted to do when I made these blueprints is to have as few blueprints as possible. I guess in theory, at the same time, there's nothing like preventing me from combining some of this blueprint with the other one into a single blueprint. What if I combine this blueprint with the other one into a single one? I don't know, but for some reason I kept it to one thing per blueprint. Um, but yeah, I wanted to reduce it to minimum amount of blueprints, even though this is more efficient for electromagnetic plants, but less efficient for everything else. Whereas, yeah, you could in theory combine this with another one, and here you would want to use all the holmium anywhere. Although it doesn't matter if you're getting the holmium, you got it anyway. It's up to you how you use it afterwards. But yeah. Um, anyway, so I ran these tests with everything. So basically, I went through all of the items. But let's say, for example, electromagnetic plant. I assumed that the novice resources, like these three, you just have an overabundance of them, right? Because you have both the 400% productivity and the asteroid reprocessing things. So unless it was uranium based, I did not consider that. Like, there's no reason to check is it better if I keep the epic quality. The epic quality is kind of free anyway, right? So if I use this blueprint, I can keep the epic quality too. There's nothing preventing me from doing that. I still get 400% productivity, for example. Kind of same deal here. But here are the results. Here you go. So I looked at, for example, mech armor, and I think here I looked at all of them. Assume that's all three of the items. So it went from 1.3% chance to 1.63% chance efficiency, rather. And and then I have a thing here that's below epic. What if I keep the items even below? What if I keep rare as well and recycle? And the only times where it actually improves the probabilities even further are the times when crafting the item directly would actually be more efficient, right? But in pretty much every case, with only a couple of exceptions, it improves the efficiency about, 10, 20, 30, up to 50%. So some examples where it did not improve the probability is tool belt equipment. And probably the reason is you're crafting tool belt equipment on an assembler with 4 module slots for only quality, but the carbon fiber you're getting from an electromagnetic plant, and you can use productivity. So yeah. Probably same for rocket turrets. Again, here I looked at the carbon fiber. But I can look at some examples. For example, let's look at the railgun, right? Let's look at tungsten specifically. So here we're looking at tungsten plate, and we have a 1% chance to get tungsten plate with a blueprint that I use, this one. We're doing it via turbo underground belt. And with turbo underground belt, we have a foundry over here. We can only use quality, so 1% efficiency. Now, if you compare that to what if we got the railgun? The railgun is made in a cryogenic plant, and we can only use quality again. So go back here. We have a cryogenic plant, but we're not looking at the ingredients, we're looking at the quality. So yes, if we made them directly, it does increase the efficiency of the tungsten plate to 1.86. So this is an example where if you use rare quality as well or uncommon quality, it's going to increase your probabilities at every step because they're better anyway. So if I go back to it, that's why it ends up being actually even epic quality actually improves it to 1.87. Dang, how come it already gets that high? Anyway, unless I've written this wrong. I may have written this wrong. I don't know. But it doesn't matter too much. So unless you're willing to make them all the way have a completely separate blueprint just for railgun turrets or have a casino gambling on railgun turrets specifically, then it's not worth it. But even in this case, the carbon fiber is not worth it below epic quality. So if you wanted to go below epic, you would also need to do these ones, but then it would drop the overall efficiency. But what you'll see is that for pretty much everything except a couple of them, it does improve the efficiency, which may have been surprising. Pretty cool. Including captive biospawners and biolabs. I haven't bothered to implement this, and the reason is you can't just keep the epic quality of, I don't know, carbon fiber, for example, or quantum processors. You need to bring in all the ingredients of equality. You would basically need to have logistics of everything of equality, everything at legendary quality, and at the same time, you can't just, if you only do legendary quality, like let's say I want to build, I don't know, legendary these, that's it. You just bring in the ingredients, done. If you want to do epic quality and legendary quality, well, you would probably need to use one of the casinos, let's say this one, and what do I want to build? Whatever, let's do this. And now you would need to modify it, so we don't need any of these. Um, why are these wrong? These are why are these negative? Okay, I don't know why this is wrong. Let's try some other item. Um, let's just do the yeah. Let's just do that. This is fine now, right? Oh, they're meant to be negative. Never mind. Never mind. I'm dumb. Okay. Okay, but we don't want this or this or this. So we only have these two items, and we need to reconnect this. Let's say here, and we don't need this or this, and we don't need this either. Instead, we'll craft them directly at Epic. We'll assume Epic is a default, and I think this is okay, but yeah, I guess you can also move this here to make it a bit nicer. But then you need to do this for every single item instead of just something like this. So just, yeah. So, I mean, it does improve it, but the extra logistics and having to do something like this for every single item instead of something as simple as this, you know, I don't know which one people prefer. I personally am like, nah, I don't want to bother doubling up my logistics and doing this. It's not worth it for 50% extra productivity for me, for 50% extra efficiency. But it is better. I giving you the maths. If people want to modify my blueprints to keep the epic quality as well, it's not that difficult, honestly. For example, here you just wouldn't craft the epic quality, right? Um, like the epic quality would become like the legend. You would just take the epic quality items too, right? So you would just take these, and then do whatever you wanted. That's it. I guess you would. Yeah, you would also need a few less recyclers, but then you would need to figure out what to do. So it's pretty simple to modify the blueprints. It's not that difficult. Don't need this either. Um, it just doesn't feel worth it to me. It's too much effort for too much hassle for not that much gain. Because 50% efficiency sounds like a lot, but really in Factorio we generally are talking about orders of magnitude, right? 50% is nice, but you want to keep compounding. And anyway, yeah, it's just not worth it for me. I guess I will upload the new code as well if people want to play around with it. I haven't tested these out that much. But yeah, the idea is you set up this stuff here and this if you're doing biolab or captive biospawner, and then you check, what if I keep just the legendary, which should be the numbers that we already know, and then you add the epic, and then you add the rare, and sometimes you're keeping the ingredient and not the item in the first step, and then you would need to change this value to 1 instead of 2. And then it's also what do I need to keep at the end. And I also, like I said, I haven't checked, for these items, what if I get the homing plate and then I somehow keep both the legendary and epic homing plate, and then I make super capacitors, at legendary and epic. Yeah, I haven't checked that either. So it's possible that you can do some other stuff as well that improves the efficiency. But yeah, I don't know. Okay, next I have some stuff about normal and legendary quality inserters. So this will have to do some to do with quality, but I guess mostly has to do with inserter mechanics. But since I'm gonna talk about legendary quality inserters as well, it has to do with quality. So what I did here is, let's go all the way down here, is I checked how inserters work when they're outputting stuff, right? So, for example, this guy is taking from a box and putting out on a belt, going, turning this direction, onto a splitter, going sideways, splitter going away. Technically, there's splitter going inwards, but I saw that on some post, but I don't know. It's just so pointless, so dumb. Like, what's the point of doing this? Like, I just don't see the point. Why would you not just do this instead? So yeah. Anyway, so I tested this for only from taking an item from a chest onto something else, whether it's a chest or a belt or a underground, and I tested it for normal and legendary quality, and whether you have a single item or it's a full stack, 16 for them, yeah, I don't know, 12 for bulk inserters, and so on and so forth. And yeah, that's it for uh, stack inserters, bulk, fast, and long-handed. And I have the results. So you may be surprised or not to know that the values that you see over here, the rotation speed is kind of, in practice, they don't really work like that. I mean, they do work like that, but because of doing, optimizing the code to maximize UPS, they have to do some approximations in a way. And when it comes to the round-off errors, some things work faster than you might expect. So instead, what's important to see is when a fast inserter picks up, how many ticks does it take to drop it off, and then turn back and pick up again. And let's just do a quick example. Let's just pause, and we can see this guy here. He just dropped off. All right, we can see here when he picks up. So 1 tick, 2, 3, 4. Just picked up. So 4 ticks to pick up. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 ticks to drop it off. Now, and that's what it's going to do. So the actual rotation speed of this guy is, you're going to see what it says it is, but in practice it's faster. So it's 4 ticks. So if I do some calculations, that's 4 divided by 60. That's how many seconds it took. Times, did I do this correctly? No. So it took this many seconds to do 180 degrees. So I actually need to divide it. Oh, God. 180 divided by 4 multiplied by 6. Yeah, so that's it. So it does 2,700 degrees per second. Actually, if you look at it, the legendary says 2,160 degrees per second. So it actually works quite a bit faster than you would think. So, um, yeah, so when it comes down to it, you need to look at the ticks specifically. How many ticks does it take to move around? And here are the normal quality inserters, and here are the legendary quality. This is the long-handed, the fast, the bulk, and the stack inserter. And they do this many degrees per tick when they're turning, right? And then I have how many ticks does it take per trip? How many are they holding the item? How many trips can they do per second? And this is assuming a single item. And then from here onwards is for a full, when their hands are full, when they're full. So 4 items here, 12 here, and 16 here, right? So one thing you may have noticed if you've looked at the stats here is that a long-handed inserter is actually has exactly half the rotation speed than a fast bulk or stack inserter. It's exactly half. But actually, the long-handed inserter is exactly as fast as it's supposed to be. If you do the calculations, 25 ticks to turn to do 180 degrees. So if I do 180 divided by 25 ticks, this is how much it does per tick, which I've already discussed that. So times 60 ticks, it's 432. But instead the rest do 12 ticks instead of 12.5. So they're a bit faster. Not a lot faster, but they're a bit faster. So yeah, one blue inserter or whatever fast inserter is a bit faster than two long-handed inserters. Anyway, also when it comes to when they have a full hand, how long it takes for them to, how many trips they do, it's the same no matter what they're outputting to, no matter what the destination is, except for sideways splitter. So they're faster in this case. They're not faster in this case, even if I were to put this. I mean the items only come out here. But in this case, they're faster because the items go on both of them. And you can see that it alternates. So that's why. And this is how many trips they can do on a sideways splitter versus, normal. And the biggest difference is, of course, for the bulk inserter because it has to drop off 12 items, whereas the rest essentially have to drop off 4 items. So this increases it by, 30, 40%, whereas for the rest it's, I don't know, 5% or something. It's basically irrelevant. Now, when it comes to Legendary, if you just look at how many ticks it takes to do 180, it's actually 3 times faster. They're supposed to be 2.5 times faster. So these ones are faster than they're even supposed to be. And then not only do they don't even get 2.5 times faster, they get 3 times faster than their already exaggerated speed. So yeah, so legendary inserters, the fast, bulk, and stack inserter are 3 times faster when it's for a single item. On the long-handed inserter, it's also faster than 2.5 times. I think it's about 2.7 something. So if I do 25 divided by 9, yeah, it's 2.777 times faster. And then one thing you'll notice though is if you're talking about a full stack, when the inserters are full, the bulk inserter benefits the least. Oh, and by the way, of course, all of these have to do with on a green belt, on a turbo belt, obviously. The legendary inserter only gets about 50% better, only has about 50% higher throughput. Because for the most part, it's when it's legendary, for the most part, it's just waiting for the belt. So yeah, it doesn't benefit that much from it. The rest benefit a decent amount. Yeah, about 2.5 times better, actually, when it comes to a full hand. Yeah, there you go. Some statistics that you may want to keep in mind. Another thing I looked into is how fast can a rocket silo, you know, fire missiles if you feed it more than enough processing units, low density structures, and rocket fuel. And I have a little system here, and at the end it tells you how many ticks it took. Although it counts based on did I change it? I think I may have changed it. How does it count now? Oh yeah, I did change it. Oh wait, I think it might be consistent now. I changed it around. So anyway, yeah, it's the fastest is 1,616. It's sorry, 1,617 ticks. Because my counter starts at 0, so it's one extra tick. And turns out that's 26.95 seconds. So that means if you can, get however many you need based on the productivity that you have to support getting 50 rocket parts per 26.95 seconds, you're fine. Now in practice, there is some other things to consider. I have been telling people that the rocket silo, if the number on the right hand side, right now it says 2.9 rocket parts per second. If it says 1.7, the rocket silo will never close. But apparently the way it works is that the rocket silo waits a little bit before closing to check if it will build the rocket, right? So it can actually take longer than, 16, 17. It's not like as soon as it can close, it will close. It will wait it waits like 2 or 3 or 4 seconds, something like that. And I can demonstrate it by reducing the speed here. I need to bring it down to, yeah. Oh, that's a lot. Okay, so I need to, what's that to? 175, there you go. So now it will never close, and we can watch it for a bit. You can see it doesn't close. But you can see the number of ticks actually change. And it will also, for some reason, it will tend to alternate between two values. So sometimes it will take 1717 and the next 1768. It will alternate for some reason. And I think, I don't know how many people this will interest. I think that has to do with specifically when this bulk inserter will start inserting. And the way the bulk inserter will start inserting when the first rocket is launched, and the second, the progress bar goes above 0. So if I stop here, actually, let's keep going. Okay. Oh, I missed it. Okay, I need to make this a bit faster. So you see now it's at 0, and you can see it isn't inserting. Once I build one rocket part, whether through normal crafting or bonus productivity, then it will start inserting. And now they're gonna craft together, and it should take 4 ticks as we learned. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, one more. And now it starts inserting. So for some reason they coded it that way. It won't start inserting inventory until you have at least until this is above 0%. I guess 2% or higher. So I think that's why it alternates, because sometimes the bonus productivity will finish faster. Other times you need to wait for the normal productivity to craft one. But anyway, as you see, it's not closing, and the numbers are higher. So what does that mean? The fastest still is 26.95 seconds. Now you also have, I couldn't calculate this more properly, but you have about 10 seconds to load. in order to keep it, as long as you can load your cargo within 10 seconds, you're fine. You can still have the maximum throughput out of a rocket silo. Okay, well, 26.95 seconds. What does this mean? I'll say here 1.7 to not close the silo, but silo still waits a bit to not close. At max throughput, yeah. This means, oh, sorry. In theory, this is how many rocket parts per second you need. In practice, because the productivity and the bonus productivity do not line up, unless you have exactly 100% productivity bonus, sometimes they won't line up because you need to build 50 rocket parts, right? Right. For example, I've built one here, or I mean, yeah, let's go all the way to the end. Let me slow it down. Right. So I built one now. So now I need one or the other to finish, right? The throughput that shows me on the right, the 1.75, doesn't matter as much as in practice. One of them finishing. Uh, so yeah, because of the productivity not lining up, you can't just look at the throughput and say, okay, I have more than 1.855. You need to look specifically, when does the productivity stop lining up, and then how much longer do I take? But I think the worst case is actually when you have 300% productivity because it lines up the list in a way. And in that case, you need 1.88 rocket parts per second. So it's not a huge difference, but yeah, with 1.88 rocket parts per second, you're guaranteed that your rocket silo will be able to at least, um, create and launch rockets as fast as possible for a rocket silo. And I have some explanation here. People want to pause and read it, specifically for 300% bonus productivity. Because the worst case scenario is if you start with the bonus productivity at 0, so you're gonna craft 12 times or times 4 rocket parts, so that's 48 rocket parts, and then you need 2 more crafts, but they will both come from bonus productivity. So in a sense, you need 12.666 normal crafts. And then with some math, you end up with this number, which is essentially 1.88. Okay. So yeah, a little bit of stuff about rocket silos. And the reason I went into this is because, well, if you have higher quality rocket silos, you can see an uncommon quality already has 1.73 on its own. Now, of course, I have 300% productivity because I'm in the editor. But yeah, in theory, eventually you won't need anything in a rocket silo. You might not need beacons or something, but generally speaking, a single beacon with speed modules is enough. And if I went all the way to legendary quality, I mean, let's see if I put, yeah, like I guess it still needs a beacon, but you can easily get a rocket silo to launch rockets as fast as possible with just a single beacon with speed modules. Okay, next. Um, yeah, I thought about it and I think it's possible. I haven't done this yet. I may do it eventually. I probably won't do a video about this, or if it's a video, it will be a very short one. I think it is possible to write code, not just to find what the efficiency is, but given, some things, like let's say, what's the speed of the crafters after beacons? So let's say I've decided I'm going to use productivity modules, I'm going to use beacons, and the actual crafting speed is this much. And then what's the crafting time of the recipe? How many items you need as ingredients? The reason you need this is to know what's the output of the recyclers and what's the throughput that you want at the end. It can give you how many crafters you need, uh, how many recyclers, how many belts from the recycling. So it can give you the optimal numbers so that you don't have to guess. I'm sure it's possible to write code for this. I just haven't done it. And actually, there may be. So people suggested a couple of things, a couple of resources. I think one is called Foreman 2. Uh, and there is a thing on, I think there is a GitHub for it, so you can look it up. And then there was another linear solver or something that kind of does the same thing I did. It may have some extra functionality, but I haven't looked into either of them in detail. But there may be stuff that already do this. Anyway, the next thing, so now we're kind of running out away from quality, but efficiency modules are great for biochambers. So if you look at my blueprints, I've tried to use efficiency modules. You can see, for example, here the max consumption is 100 kilowatt. This is really nice. Why is it really nice? Because nutrients, no matter what their quality, they have 2 megajoules. So that means with with max efficiency moduling, each nutrient will last 20 seconds. Period. When you know that, and also knowing that it can last 20 seconds, you can input the nutrients one by one with inserter. If instead you had like some massive energy need, you may need to input a lot more. It makes it a lot harder to make sure that you're not wasting nutrients or spoilage or having to deal with spoilage. So it's really nice. I've done some circuitry here. Here, I think actually, I'm not going to say it's impossible, but realistically, it's very unlikely that you will ever get any spoilage from, from feeding them with nutrients. Another thing that people may know or not is when you place a nutrient here in the fuel buffer, once the biochamber starts using it, it will turn into this red bar that, starts at full and goes down to the left. Even if it has a single second of freshness left when it's in the buffer, once it starts getting used, that doesn't matter. It will fully get used no matter what. That's another nice thing to know. So, but the good thing is if you use, ideally just, get it down to 100 kilowatts, but as long as it's low enough, that's fine. You can much more easily control not only how much spoilage or nutrients you want, you can also control exactly, how much you craft and how much, so you don't have to deal with spoilage. It's a lot more predictable once you do some circuitry to feed them correctly. Finally, one last thing I learned is that when you do set recipe here and you want to, for example, the casino gambler, you want to change, between different qualities. One thing I learned is that lower quality is priority. The value of the signals does not matter at all. So, for example, let me do an example. If I have here this and this, even if, oh, no, even if this is a higher value, it will switch to why isn't it switching? Oh yeah, it will switch to yeah. Even though this has a higher value, it doesn't switch to uncommon. Maybe I can delete this. If I delete this, it switches to uncommon, right? And yeah, it doesn't matter. So it always prioritizes lower quality. Now, it's good thing that on the other hand, the selector combinators always prioritize higher quality in general. At least if you do this correctly, or for example, I think in quality filter, no, in quality transfer, it also prioritizes highest quality. So you can do kind of what you want. Oops. Um, so yeah, and then when it comes to changing the items here, I think they're priority. Besides quality, I think next they are prioritized by where they are. So probably wooden chest has the highest priority in theory. They just go like this from left to right, up to down, and from left to right in terms of the tab. So first this tab, then this, then this, then this, and this. On the other hand, I'm not sure about that. Let's test it out. Okay. Let's do electronic circuit. Okay, maybe that's why. Let's put them back. This and this. Okay. Oh, that has the highest priority, then this. Oh, they actually do have priority. Okay. Well, I guess I just selected that wrong thing. Okay, so yeah, that's probably how they work. As if you're reading a book. Yeah. So that's the priority, and then when it comes to quality, lowest quality has priority. I think that's all I had to add about quality, random stuff that I learned. Um, I think last I will talk about what I thought of quality, kind of my personal thoughts. I thought it was an interesting engineering challenge. Figuring it out, doing all the maths. Even now, I'm still finding new stuff like these things over here, right? So it's definitely an interesting engineering puzzle to figure out. Now, as a game mechanic, I personally do not enjoy it that much. I I enjoy far more upgrades that are like this, that you go from nuclear power or solar panel to fusion reactor and generator, right? Because these are completely new mechanics. I like that a lot more. And honestly, Space Age doesn't offer a lot of that. If you kind of think about, like for the most part, it's just faster buildings. That's kind of it, right? Like the electromagnetic. I mean, it was cool that the electromagnetic plant had some of these had inherent 50% productivity, including the biolab. But I guess the biolab doesn't change much how you play at all. Uh, I think the electromagnetic plant slightly changes how much you play, but generally speaking, they're not that interesting. This is far more interesting. So I do like upgrades a lot. The recycler is also nice, but honestly, if it wasn't for quality, it would have very limited use because you don't really need barrels that much. So that's basically one of its few uses. It has some uses here and there, but I mean, it's good that they added it. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely think it was a good addition. It's very nice to have this. Uh, the big minder. So how can I say they're cool upgrades, but they're not as interesting as fusion power. I don't think there was another app. How can I say upgrade that was cool? The space mechanic was really fun. Um, I don't like it. There's parts of it I don't like, but for different reasons. But as a general gameplay mechanic, yeah, cool. It's new. It's great. The mech armor is an upgrade in a way, right? Because you can fly over stuff. That's the main thing that's different. Besides that, I guess you got the tool belt. Um, I wouldn't call that particularly interesting, but it's a nice upgrade. And then the new turrets, I mean, honestly, I don't know. The enemies are so easy that you only use them for asteroids. And it is interesting to like find out how to build your ship. I do like that. So I do like that. It just kind of, I mean, that has more to do with the enemies. And I guess, people who haven't played the game as much as most of us who are probably watching this video, yeah, they might have more use for these. Although I don't know. I mean, you get to Aquilo, then you unlock Railgun. Do you really need it on Novice or, I don't know, Gleba or something? Maybe. I don't know. So yeah, there weren't many upgrades to be excited about. I do prefer it if it's like that. Plus, this is based on something. Whereas, if I get higher quality, assembly machine 3, like, what does that mean? Oh, we just build it better. Anyway, not that I'm saying that it's bad that they added this. I mean, why not? I'm not one to complain about to the point where I'm like, no, reverse this, put it back. and I really enjoy spending time with it. I mean, I made a guide for it, so I enjoyed the engineering puzzle around it. So yeah, that's what I think. Okay, well, one last thing is I want to show off my train stations. They had one issue left, but I actually watched a video about how to solve it. So I may release a blueprint around them, but they're real nice. The only issue I had is that you would get many trains dispatching. For example, if one station needed crude oil, and I had 10 stations that from where you could pick up crude oil, you would get one train going to each to pick it up. But I have train stations that, clearly they have a lot of circuitry. You don't need to do much. When it comes to stations that pick up items, you actually don't need to do much. So let me show you. You go to rail stations, generic, and then it's pick up solids, and let's do 5 to 8 inputs, belt inputs. Done. You literally don't need to do anything. Now, I do need to also modify the actual train station itself, like this part. So not the logic, but just the belting, because with legendary stack inserters, all of this will have to change somehow. Um, but when it comes to the logic, it has a lot of nice things. Like as you saw, that's it. Like if you put this down and then use the rest of the my train setup, you just need to connect the inputs. That's it. You want to get the iron ore? Yeah, just connect it over here. And then the only thing that is optional to change is this, which says how many trains do I want to queue up, or rather, what's the max? Where is it? The max train limit here. It will not go above that. Generally, you would probably keep it to around 3 for most of them, but yeah, that's the only thing you need to change. All of my stations have this name, although I might change that because I've noticed it's kind of annoying when you go into your trains and they all go to pickup. It doesn't tell you where they're going. So I may change that and do some parameterization so that it at least modifies the name. But then again, you can also, can you go? Maybe not. I'll think about that. I may do two versions. I may do the generic version and I may do the specific version so that then if you go to your trains, I don't have any in the editor. You can then see how they work. Um, but there's a lot of cool stuff. I have priority here. It changes the priority. This helps in a number of ways. It makes sure that every station will get um, some items. If two stations are asking for one item that you don't have enough supply of, it won't go to one station only. It will somewhat alternate between the two. What else? But yeah, in principle, this station just looks at your items, and that's how it determines what item is there. So I think it's over here, just takes the find stack size of item part 1. This is used because of the quality mode. And this is part 2. Total number of items in steel chests. So it has a bunch of stuff to make sure that it's requesting the right amount of trains. And yeah, it's really easy to use. Once I fix the last issue that we're having, it's basically going to be like logistic robots. You want one train, it will go, it will pick up, then it will drop off. There will be very little to do to set it up. Of course, every time you're going to need to connect it to your rail, right? I guess here, and then maybe place some of these, and you need to connect the inputs. Now the outputs right now are go here and you drop off, whatever. Let's just place it here. So here you need to set some more stuff. I mean, here clearly I can't know what the hell you're gonna drop off, right? And you need to do some extra stuff. So let's say I'm dropping off iron plate. You also want to say, what's the maximum number of stacks you want to keep? When it's 800, that's 5 full trains. Generally, that will work for most things, but maybe for some you want more. The maximum is 2304. But yeah, 800 is generally a good value to set. You can set it to kind of whatever you want. And then I have a reminder here, you also need to set the station name and the max train limit. So you need to go here and change this to, how do oh yeah, I think it's really simple. I think it's just this. That's it. So you just set to what you want, and then you can change how many train, again, the maximum train limit. So yeah, the more throughput you're expecting, the more you may want to increase that. But of course, you need to have enough, enough room for them so they don't block your railway. But that's it. So I think once I make the last changes, I don't know if people will be interested in that, but let me quickly go into my actual game and show you a bit how they work. Okay, so here's my actual game. And as you'll see, I have a bunch of city blocks. And I can also share my city blocks, although, yeah, actually they're fine. They're not as useful in Space Age with the legendary quality and stuff, but they're nice. It's really easy to expand on novice once you've kind of set them up. Like like I said, you just also set up some laser turrets here and there, and then every once in a while you place some artillery turrets, and then the artillery turrets can blast. And then if I want to expand more, then I can go to my city blocks, and I guess first set it up like that. I could just do boom, you just place it. The robots will build them, and then at the edge I will set up, laser turrets and artillery again, and then I can destroy further and keep expanding. So if you want to expand, it's really easy, really like you only need, I don't know, like 5 minutes to get. If I want to get like this much land plus this much plus this much plus this much, in terms of how much time I need to spend, is like 5 minutes. I mean, it's gonna take a while to get it, but total time, it's probably like 5-10 minutes, including placing, destroying the forests, um, destroying the cliffs. I don't know, setting a landfill. It's gonna take the bots a long time to do it, but actual player time is very little if you want to expand. So the city block just has rail going around, and if you also want extra, let me just show this off specifically. No, city blocks. So there's this, and then this has, if you notice, it has some more rail in the middle, and that's so that trains can queue up a bit more easily. And you can see it's the green stuff. So wherever I want to build and I expect a lot of trains, then I also add that, whereas the rest are just empty like that. And here I have a special thing. This is just the kind of the main bus, just brings everything. And but here I only do, uh, it's only like logistics, production, space, and combat. I don't have any intermediate products in here. Uh, what else? But yeah, the trains. The main hub is depots here. They also have priority, but yeah, still need to change them so that I implement the fix I have. So yeah, so this will have a priority of 30 versus 29 and so on and so forth. And the reason is because I want them to prioritize coming to these and these so that they can leave faster. As you see, most of my trains are just chilling. They're not doing much. And this one is going somewhere. Let's see. Oh God, I can't fucking click it. Come on. Come on, please. Oh, this is easy. There we go. So it's going over here. It's going to pick up some plastic. And then I assume it's going to go to probably where is it? Over here? Yeah, it's probably gonna come here. for the advanced circuits. Yep. And then I will go back to the depot. Um, the main problem is if I want, if I need some crude oil, then if you go to my trains and I go to my stations, where is so I only have one station where I drop off crude oil, but where is the pickup? I want the other pickup. Most of these are for crude oil. You can see there's crude oil here, crude oil here, crude oil here, crude oil here. So once once this station, and maybe I can boom. Watch what's gonna happen. Suddenly they're all going to pick up. I have 12 trains going to pick up crude or 11 or whatever. They will each go to one of the stations, and maybe I can look at the stations. Yeah, like 11 out of 12. One going to each station. 12 out of 12. Oh, there's 18 stations. Okay. Yeah. They're all going to pick up crude oil, and then only a few of them will actually go to drop it off. So I have found a way to fix this, and after I fix this, then that will fix pretty much all the issues. It will be LTN. You will need very little setup. Right now with the trains, you don't even need to do anything. I think you just place a new one down and that's it. You just need to place it at where are they? Over here in the depot. It will get fueled. It will do everything. As long as you copy one from the same group, like either one with normal wagons or with fluid wagons, you just place it here and that's it. And the stations, as you saw, it doesn't need much. So if people are interested, let me know. I think that's the thing I will focus on next, fixing this so that finally my train system works. Now, I may also bother to change the train stations for legendary stack inserters. Might as well do that. And then they'll be perfect for space aids. Assuming trains of 1.4, although honestly, I don't know what to think about trains. When you have legendary stack inserters, like they're so fast, like you'll just need trains going constantly through them to get enough throughput. So I'll need to think about it. But anyway, that's it. If you want, yeah, if you want my city blocks or the trains, let me know. And if there's enough interest, I will post a video about them and explaining how they work. If there's not that much interest, I will post a short video just telling you you know, here's the links, go download them. Anyway, that will do it. Thank you for watching. This video I will probably edit it much less. I'm honestly kind of sick of the editing and doing the subtitles and everything. I like doing the blueprints, I like talking about them, but cutting down the videos takes a long time. Like part 4, for example, was an hour and a half. Just for the video specifically, not the blueprints, just for the video, I probably spent over 60 hours. So yeah, and it's not interesting. Like doing the editing is pretty boring. I don't do fun editing as you saw. I just cut it so that it's, the recording is like 3 hours. I cut it down to an hour and a half. This recording right now is an hour and 20 minutes. I probably won't do as many cuts in this one just because I'm just sick of doing it. I'll probably cut it down to at least 1 hour though. And then the subtitles also like when you do subtitles, YouTube is okay. Again, this is the first video series I do where I put some kind of effort. Uh, but yeah, if the video is an hour, the subtitles probably take like 3 hours because you need to pause and yeah, it takes a long time. So anyway, thank you for watching. If you have any feedback, especially on how to improve the blueprints, let me know. Or if you have issues with the blueprints, thank you for watching and see you around.